we discovered that seed means more than just the material. Seed goes beyond money. In fact, we have intentionally taught since January, as kingdom citizens, we are to sow seed. And in sowing seed, we're literally sowing God in the earth. In fact, the seed represents God. And God is love. And so when we sow seed and when we talk about planting, we're simply saying we're giving God to a dying world. Because here's the truth of the matter, a lot of us don't have money to sow, but we can sow love into somebody's life. Y'all hear me today? And we can sow peace in somebody's life. Love is something we can give. In fact, here is the problem with harvest. The problem with harvest is that a lot of us want the manifestation of harvest, but we don't want to go through the process of sowing. In fact, Paul had to deal with this in Corinth. Paul had to tell the church at Corinth, those who sow sparingly shall also reap sparingly. When he talks about sowing sparingly, here's what Paul is in fact saying, that when we sow little, we get little. And so if we are looking at seed, meaning something beyond money, that means that if we sow love, guess what we get in return? If we sow love sparingly, when we need to be loved, we reap love sparingly. How many of you ever need to be forgiven in the building today? Ever need to be forgiven? You can sow forgiveness in someone who hurt you. And if you forgive sparingly when you need to be liberated by others, folk ain't gonna want to be bothered with you. But Paul shifts. He says, if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly, but if you sow bountifully, you shall reap bountifully. Here's what I've had an issue with the kingdom of God, is that there are a lot of people who are reaping bountiful blessings. And we don't understand that the reason they are reaping the bountiful blessing is because they have sown bountiful seed. It is amazing that we don't celebrate kingdom success simply because we feel that people have manipulated their way to the top. And because of a hookup, you are where you are in your life. But I'm talking to 10 people in here who have received the manifold blessings of God, not because you knew somebody. I'm trying to take my time. But you have reaped a bountiful blessing simply because you have sown seeds in tears when nobody was around to see the pain of your sowing. And that's why we ought not apologize for the bountiful blessings that God gives us. And you don't want to offend anybody because you don't want them to think that you're acting stuck up or you're trying to be sedity. Here's what I want folk to do. If you're blessed in the building and you know you've not manipulated or schemed your way to the top, but what you enjoy is because when you should have given up, you didn't give up. And because you didn't, God is opening the windows of heaven and pouring you out a blessing. Tell your neighbor, baby, what you see, you will never understand because I've sown some seed when I didn't even understand what I was doing. You will never know what your neighbor have had to endure to receive what they enjoy. But watch what Paul says. He says, and this is introduction, you will never understand this whole concept of reaping harvest if you don't understand seed. You got to come to Bible study noonday and at 7 p.m. We've laid this foundation. But let me tell you this. Paul goes on to say that if you sow bountifully, you reap bountifully, sow sparingly. But in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, Paul shifts. And you know what Paul says? He says, don't sow grudgingly or of necessity. So he shifts now from how much you sow to now the attitude when you sow. Because some of us, the problem is not how much we're sowing, it's the fact that you're nasty when you do it. Am I in the right church today? And I've told the early service, I would rather people keep their stuff than to sow a seed in my life and then remind me of what they did days later. Tell your neighbor, I would rather you just keep it. If you got to tell everybody what you've done for me, if you got to remind me of what you sowed in my life, I don't need to hear a speech. Tell your neighbor, either you're going to bless me or let me go. But some of us, the problem is that we have a nasty attitude when it comes to sowing. In fact, here's what God said in Matthew chapter 18. He says, if you have aught with your brother, he says, leave your seed at the altar. Go reconcile to your brother or sister and then come back and present your seed to the Lord. Here's what's amazing to me. Some of our harvest is in a holding pattern because you sow with an attitude instead of sowing with gratitude. Here's what's shocking to me. How is it that the grateful can be so ungrateful? I don't mean to get on your nerve, but some folk in the kingdom are mean. Somebody say mean. Mean kingdom citizens, and we want the blessings of God, but we don't want to go through the sowing process of abundance and attitude. Watch what we're doing. We're in this month of seed. Here's what Pastor Nate is laying a foundation for. Be sure that you're sowing seed, because hear me good, you never lose when you sow seed. Some of my biggest blessings in my life, and I am a giver, man. I give to people. I love to give to people. And let me tell you something, church. You never lose when you sow seed. There were times I've received so much love and it hit me. The reason people love me so much is because I've loved other people so much. And so it all makes sense. Don't think you're in a crazy harvest season. No, you planted those seeds and God is just blessing your life. And so this month we're dealing with soil. Everybody say soil. And here's what the question is this month. It's simply this. When we talk about soil, we're talking about sowing into people. Here's the question that's universal to us this month is that do you judge the soil before you pour or sow into the soil? There are a lot of people we ought to sow into who we don't sow into simply because we don't like them. I'm helping somebody today because how many of you have bypassed the opportunity to sow in people, and some of us have missed our blessing simply because we see the soil and don't like the soil and we keep it moving. This month, we're going to be challenging you that you cannot judge how the soil looks. If God has called us to plant seed, we must plant seed into people even when people don't make sense to us. We have to, in fact, sow seed into people who we know don't even like us. Pastor Nate, you mean I got to sow into somebody who I know dogged me out? Yeah, you have to forgive them. That's sowing forgiveness. You have to, listen, you have to sow into uncomfortable people. But God gave me something even with this, that the soil not only deals with the people, but it also deals with the circumstances of our life. Hear me good today, because somebody walked in this room and you didn't even want to be here today. In fact, you don't even know how you ended up in this sanctuary because you're in a winter season of your life. You're in a dark, cold place in your life. And here's what Pastor Nate is saying, that seed sowing goes beyond just the good times of life. I'm talking to somebody in the room. Hear me teach you this morning. I'm telling you that there are going to be times in your life where it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be a fun time. There's not going to be blossoms of bloom, but God is still calling us to sow seed.